Donald Trump thinks that the economy is his strongest point heading into the 2020 presidential election. And as I've repeatedly said, on paper, the economy looks amazing, right? Unemployment has reached lows that we didn't think were even possible anymore. In fact, we're almost at statistical full employment here in the United States. And if you don't dig past that number, man, that looks awesome, right? The stock market's doing great, which looks great on paper, as long as you don't dig into it too far. Everything looks good, right? Except for one thing. For more than 80% of people in this country, none of those indicators are reflecting how they are doing. Fewer than half of the people in this country own stocks. More than 80% of the stocks owned in this country are owned by the top 5% income earners. The rest of the people who own those stocks, occasionally you have a, lower income investor. The rest of them are just in retirement funds that people really have no control over. So those rises in the stock market aren't affecting us, at least not today. And as for that full employment, well, you also have to look at the fact that we have 40% of Americans working in jobs that do not pay a living wage. 40% living paycheck to paycheck. Another 40% unable to afford an emergency of $400 or more. 40 million people in this country living in poverty. And you have 140 million people in this country considered to be poor. I have to read this paragraph here from The Guardian, because this tells us what the economy is really like for most people in this country. 3 individuals own as much wealth as all of the bottom 140 million people combined. 3 people own as much wealth as the bottom 140 American citizens. The real cost of living has soared while wages have stagnated. Since the 1970s, the number of people who are paying more than a third of their monthly income in rent has doubled, and there is not a single county in the nation where a person working full-time at minimum wage can afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. 60% of African Americans are poor or low income, as are 64% of Hispanics, but the largest single racial group among America's poor and low income, 66 million Americans, are white. This has to be, not even needs to be, folks, this has to be the talking point heading into the 2020 presidential election. The only thing Trump has to brag about is how well the economy's doing, and that's in spite of him, not because of him. But if we have a candidate that goes out there and talks about the real numbers, that looks past the job creation numbers. We just came off a month, January. Job creation exceeded expectations. Now, we're likely going to see in a month or two that we have to revise those numbers back because, oops, they were overestimated, because that's happened for the last 18 months, but still creating jobs. But as I said, as long as you don't look behind that, everything looks okay. But when you start to look at what kinds of jobs were created, what are the wages of those jobs? What's the skill levels of those jobs? And you're going to find out that these are jobs that don't pay people a living wage, or they're temporary jobs, or they're, part-time jobs. But in the jobs report and that final jobs number, that's not reflected. It could be a job that's only 6 months. It could be a job where you only get 15 hours per week. And that's going to be counted with the same weight as a job where you work 40 hours a week making $100,000 a year. It's not fair. And that's why we have to look behind those statistics and we have to talk about those numbers. Bernie Sanders does that. Bernie Sanders, and to a degree, Elizabeth Warren, at least she used to. She's changed quite a bit in the last month. But they go out there and they see what's really happening. They know that the stock market doing well doesn't reflect the prosperity of the middle class, because their prosperity doesn't exist. Their wages are not going up. They are not getting Trump's tax cuts. They can't afford their medication. They can't even afford to get a new set of tires for their car if they blow out. They can't. I've been there. I'm still kind of on the cusp of still being that way. If I go out to my car this afternoon and it doesn't crank, my transmission blew, I'm screwed. If I blow a tire and have to replace it, I'm okay. But too many people are in that same boat. It's paycheck to paycheck. And maybe you have $50 left in the bank by the time that next paycheck hits. It's about what I have. And I have no problem opening up and being honest about that, folks. Because there's millions upon millions of people, the majority of people in this country, who are in the same boat as me. And we understand that when Trump sends out those tweets and tells us how great we're doing, all we have to do is look at our paycheck, look at our tax return, or look at our bank account to know that this isn't true. And that's what Democrats have to be pointing out at every opportunity as we inch closer to November. What are you doing? It's over. The video's over. I'm done complaining about everything, and that's it. The end. Leave. Well, okay, if you're going to stick around, maybe you should give us a like, a comment, a share, just subscribe to stay connected with all of our content. Or maybe you should consider becoming a member for some exclusive content and perks. Just follow the link in the description. Now, go. Just go.